I always say the quietest dinners carry the loudest secrets, but nothing could have prepared me for the secret that exploded in my living room that Sunday evening. We were all seated at the table, my son, his wife, and me, just sharing a simple meal. No drama, no tension, nothing unusual. The only sound in the room was the clinking of cutlery until his phone buzzed from the kitchen counter. At first, I didn't pay attention, but then it buzzed again and again. Like someone was desperately trying to reach him. Curiosity nudged me. I glanced over, and my heart skipped. My daughter-in-law's name was flashing across the screen, but she was sitting right there with us, holding a spoon, nodding politely as my son talked about work. I frowned, glanced at her, then back at the phone. Maybe it was her other line? Maybe she left her phone somewhere? Still, my spirit was uneasy. So I stood up, walked to the counter, and answered the call. But the voice that came through wasn't hers. It wasn't calm. It wasn't casual. It was a panicked whisper from a woman I didn't recognize. Don't trust her. She's not who you think she is. I froze where I stood. My son's face drained of color like he'd been expecting this. And my daughter-in-law? She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just kept eating. That's when it hit me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a but dial. This was a warning. Now, before I continue, let me catch my breath, because what happened after that phone call nearly turned my entire family upside down. But first, tell me something. Where are you watching from right now? I love knowing where my listeners are tuning in from. Different cities, different countries, but somehow the same kinds of secrets hide in every home. You see, families can look picture perfect from the outside, smiling faces, matching outfits, Sunday dinners. Until one small vibration from a forgotten phone cracks everything open like an egg. And trust me, that night, the crack didn't just open. It split wide like an earthquake. So settle in, because what started as a simple dinner turned into a maze of lies, danger, and a truth I would have never believed if I didn't hear it with my own ears. Now, let me take you back to how it all began. Before the warning, before the whisper, before the night, everything changed. Before that night, before the whisper that sliced through our peace like a knife, life in my house was ordinary. Quiet. Predictable in the kind of way you almost take for granted. I'm a 67-year-old retired nurse, the kind of woman who notices everything even when I pretend I don't. After my husband passed, my son insisted I move in with them, so I wouldn't be alone. I agreed, mostly because I wanted to keep an eye on him. He's always been the sensitive type. Loyal to a fault, gentle-hearted, the kind of man who still says please and thank you, like it's a prayer. And then there's my daughter-in-law. Beautiful. Warm. Soft-spoken. The type that brings you flowers on a Wednesday just because. She cooks like a chef, hosts like an angel, and carries herself with a grace that could fool even the sharpest eyes. Sometimes I used to look at her and think, God, my son really won the lottery. But you know how your spirit sometimes catches something before your head does? Every now and then there were little things. Not big, not loud, just things. Like the nights she'd step outside to take a quick call and return looking slightly rattled. Or the times she'd say she was at a work training, but her outfit didn't match the story. Or how she always kept her phone face down, even during the most innocent conversations. Tiny flags. Pink flags. Not quite red. But nothing strong enough to accuse someone's wife of anything. And honestly, my son loved her. Loved her in that deep, quiet way that made him blind to anything that didn't fit the picture. Every Sunday, we had a routine. He'd grill. She'd make salad. I'd bake my coconut bread. And we'd sit together, laugh, talk, and pretend the world was simpler than it actually is. That Sunday was no different. The house smelled of roasted chicken and thyme. The windows were open to let in the cool breeze. My son was bragging about a big project at work, something about database access upgrades, security clearances, managerial trust, the kind of job where one wrong click could bring down an entire system. My daughter-in-law kept smiling at him with those soft eyes that make a man melt. And me? I was sitting there sipping soup thinking, maybe I'm just paranoid. Maybe there's nothing wrong here. There was no tension, no raised voices, no strange behavior. Just a calm, peaceful family dinner in a home that felt safe. If someone had told me that in less than 20 minutes, that same home would become a battlefield of lies, secrets, and danger, I would have laughed and told them to stop watching so many movies. But life has a funny way of flipping without warning. And that night, life didn't just flip. It ruptured, starting with one vibrating phone and a name that should never have appeared on the screen. It started small. The kind of small you almost ignore. A buzzing phone. Just one vibration, at first a little hum from the kitchen counter. My son didn't move. He was too busy talking about some new security clearance he'd earned at work, the kind that made him sit a little taller, talk a little prouder. Then the phone buzzed again. Louder this time. Longer. My daughter-in-law glanced toward the kitchen for a split second, then quickly forced a smile back onto her face, as if she'd caught herself slipping. I noticed it. For a woman who always acted calm and collected, that micro-expression was out of place. Then the phone buzzed a third time. Persistent.
Urgent.
Almost panicked. That might be important, I said casually, wiping my hands.
My son shrugged.
It's probably a work notification. I'll check it later. But something tugged at me, some old instinct from my nursing days. That feeling when a patient says they're fine, but you can sense something beneath the surface. Let me just see who it is, I said, pushing my chair back. I didn't mean to snoop. I really didn't. But the moment I reached the counter and saw the lit-up screen, my breath caught. My daughter-in-law's name was blinking on the caller ID. My eyes darted to her instantly. She was right there, at the dining table, lifting her glass, smiling politely as if nothing strange was happening. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Why would her name appear on his phone when she was literally sitting 5 feet away from him? My son's face twitched. Barely noticeable, unless you were watching his soul instead of his smile. Something wasn't right. I hesitated, then picked up the phone and answered, "Hello?" Silence. Then a trembling breath, followed by a woman's voice, unfamiliar, strained, almost broken. "Don't trust her. She's not who you think she is." My blood went cold. I whipped my head toward the dining table. My son's fork stopped midair. His eyes widened, like someone had just read his deepest fear out loud. My daughter-in-law didn't even blink. She kept chewing slowly, deliberately, as if she hadn't heard anything. As if she already knew what the call was about. Right then, something inside me shifted. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a mistake. It was the moment everything familiar shattered. It was the moment the truth began to crawl out from whatever dark place it had been hiding. For a moment, everything in the room froze, like time itself was afraid to move. I lowered the phone slowly, my hand trembling. My heart was hammering so loudly I could hear it in my ears. My son stared at me, his eyes begging me not to say a word. My daughter-in-law finally looked up, giving me the softest, most polite smile, the kind of smile that made me wonder how many lies a person could hide behind perfect teeth. I cleared my throat. "Your phone rang," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My son swallowed hard. "Mom, don't worry about it." "Don't worry?" I stared at him. "Your wife's name was on the screen." The spoon in my daughter-in-law's hand clinked softly against her bowl. Just one sharp metallic note, but it hit me like thunder. "Oh," she said innocently. "That's strange. My phone is right here." She reached into her purse and held up her phone like a badge of innocence. Screen off. Silent. Unbothered. "Maybe it was synced by accident," she added with a shrug. But I wasn't stupid. And my son, he looked like a man whose excuses were running out. I took a step closer to the table. Before I answered, 3 calls came in. "Why would you call your husband when you're sitting right in front of him?" My daughter-in-law laughed. A small, airy giggle that didn't match the weight in the room. "I didn't call him," she said, "so maybe it's a glitch. Phones do that, you know." "No," I snapped before I could stop myself. "Phones don't speak with voices they shouldn't have. That wiped the smile off her face. My son stood up abruptly. Mom, please. No. I cut him off. This isn't normal. Someone just whispered to me, don't trust her. Who was that? He stared at the floor, breathing heavily. My daughter-in-law put a hand on his arm, her voice sugar-coated. Honey, this is exactly why I said your mother shouldn't interfere in our marriage. That did it. Interfere. I raised my voice, feeling heat rush into my cheeks. A strange woman calling me from his phone and warning me about you isn't interference, it's danger. My son looked torn apart, like he was being stretched between two lives, one he knew and one he was afraid to confront. My daughter-in-law's expression hardened for the first time since the call. Just for a flash, cold, sharp, calculating, before she smoothed it over again. Maybe, she said slowly. Maybe you misheard. You're older. Mistakes happen.
Oh.
So that's where she wanted to take it. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. Darling, I whispered, I know what I heard.
And I know what fear sounds like.
Whoever that woman was, she wasn't lying. The room erupted, my son yelling, my daughter-in-law defending herself, me demanding answers. Dinner was forgotten.
Peace was gone.
And the truth was clawing at the door, begging to be let in. The house stayed heavy for days after that dinner. Full of unspoken tension, half-finished conversations, and questions no one wanted to answer. My son walked around like a shadow of himself, jumpy at every notification, guarding his phone like a newborn child. And my daughter-in-law, she became sweeter. Too sweet. Cooking his favorite meals. Leaving love notes on the fridge. Kissing his forehead in front of me like she was auditioning for Wife of the Year. Fake sweetness has a smell, a bitter perfume that clings to everything. I wasn't fooled. Something was wrong. And if no one else wanted to uncover it, then I would.
For the first week, I didn't act.
I just watched. I watched how she kept her phone on silent at all times, face down, screen dimmed. I watched how she stepped out onto the balcony every night for 10 minutes, pretending to check the laundry, though she never carried a basket. I watched how my son avoided conversations about the call, as if the truth might spill out of his mouth if he opened it too wide. I wrote everything down, every movement, every expression, every inconsistency. It wasn't paranoia if the danger was real. One afternoon, she left for a quick grocery run. I heard the front door close. But a minute later, her other phone buzzed in the bedroom.
Yes.
Her other phone. A black smartphone hidden behind her clothing drawers, one I had never seen before. It vibrated twice, then stopped. I waited until it was safe, then I told my niece, Cynthia. 23 years old. Tech wizard. Hacker in training, the legal kind. She came over immediately. She didn't touch the phone. We were careful, but she traced the general carrier prefix. This number isn't registered under her real name, she whispered. It's under someone called Mara Ibekwe. Not her name. Not even close. My heart dropped. My best friend, Esther, a retired police clerk who had spent decades reading people and paperwork, came to help me observe. We sat quietly in my bedroom one night with the lights off, watching the living room through a thin crack in the door. At exactly 11:13 p.m.,
she arrived.
My daughter-in-law, tiptoeing through the hallway, holding the black phone like a bomb that might explode if she breathed too loud. She pressed the screen to her ear and whispered, "Relax. I told you I'm handling it." Handling what? Esther's eyebrows bounced up. Your daughter-in-law is not innocent, she muttered. Fate always helps those who are looking. 2 days later, while doing laundry, I found a small folded receipt inside her jeans pocket. Not for groceries, not for household items, but for a parking lot, a private one, far from her home. And attached was a timestamp that matched her spa appointment the night before. Spa my foot. I stuffed the receipt into my wrapper quickly, my hands trembling. She wasn't meeting a friend. She wasn't relaxing. She was meeting someone. And I was going to find out who. Cynthia suggested we track the number, legally, through a digital footprint method she learned in university. We weren't hacking. We were following signals. After 2 hours of analysis on her laptop, she gasped. Auntie, the calls on this second phone, they're coming from a device registered to the same name, Mara Ibekwe. Someone else is using that identity too. 2 connected phones. Same fake name. 2 people communicating secretly. My daughter-in-law and someone else. My chest tightened. On the 7th day of my investigation, the woman who called me from my son's phone struck again. This time, she didn't call, she showed up. I was returning from the market when a thin woman stepped out from behind a parked car, her face partially hidden under a scarf. You shouldn't be walking alone, she whispered. I froze. Her voice. That same trembling tone. You were the one who called, I said quietly. She nodded. You need to get your son away from her, she whispered. She's dangerous. Who are you? I demanded. She looked around nervously. Someone who has been where you are now. Before I could ask more, she slipped a folded sheet of paper into my hand and disappeared like smoke. I unfolded the paper slowly. It was a list of names. Men's names.
Dozens of them.
Next to each name was a date and a word. Compromised. Filed. Used. Vanished. And at the bottom, my son's name, with the word, ongoing. My knees buckled. My whole body chilled. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just secret phone calls.
This was a pattern.
A system. An operation. And my son was next. That receipt I found in her jeans? I followed it. That evening, I asked Esther to drive me to that exact address, a dimly lit private parking lot tucked behind a dusty warehouse. We parked far away, watching silently. 10 minutes later, her car arrived. She stepped out, checking over her shoulder. Then another figure emerged from the shadows, a woman in a hoodie. They didn't hug. They didn't greet. They exchanged a thick manila envelope. My mouth went dry. It looked like cash or documents. Esther gripped my arm. You're not imagining things. Something big is happening here. We returned home before her. I sat in the living room, trembling with anger, betrayal, and a fear deeper than any I'd known. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was evidence. My daughter-in-law was hiding something, working with someone, lying to my son, lying to us all. And that woman who called, she wasn't warning me for fun. She was trying to save us. Save my son. Save our family. And I knew something with terrifying clarity. This was only the beginning. This is where the entire narrative changes direction, shocking the audience and elevating the stakes. I wrote it with cinematic pacing, heavy suspense, psychological tension, and the exact addictive twist-style viral faceless channels use. For days, the clues gnawed at me. The second phone, the secret calls, the late-night balcony whispers, the parking lot exchange, the trembling woman who warned me. But nothing prepared me for the truth that hit me like a blow to the chest. It happened on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I was in the backyard watering my hibiscus plants when I sensed someone watching me. I turned, and there she was, the same woman from the parking lot. The same woman who whispered through my son's phone. Her face was pale, her eyes frantic. She stepped forward shakily, pulling her hood down. I shouldn't be here, she breathed. But you're running out of time. My voice trembled.
Who are you?
Why are you warning me? She swallowed hard. My name is Ijeoma, she said. And your daughter-in-law, she wasn't always called the name you know. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? Ijeoma looked around as if shadows were listening. She changes her identity. Every 2 to 3 years. She finds men with access to sensitive systems. She pretends to love them. Then she uses their trust to steal information and pass it to people who pay her. I shook my head.
No.
No, she's my son's wife. She's sweet, Ijeoma grabbed my wrist, desperate. That's what she wants you to believe. That's what she wanted me to believe too. Silence. My brother was one of her past targets, she whispered. She destroyed him. Financially. Emotionally. Legally. I felt my breath thinning. She didn't work alone. Igioma continued. There's someone else. Someone higher. They pick targets like your son. Men who can unknowingly give them entry to systems they can exploit. But why warn me? I asked shakily. Tears filled her eyes. Because I couldn't save my brother, she said. But I can try to save yours. Her voice cracked as she handed me a photo. A grainy image of my daughter-in-law in a different city with a different hairstyle and a different name. Same smile. Same eyes. Same woman. And next to her in the photo was a man I didn't recognize. That's the man she met last night, Igioma whispered. The one she exchanged the envelope with. He's not her partner. He's her handler. My knees buckled. Handler? This wasn't a simple affair. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't marriage drama. This was a coordinated operation. A system of deception. A ring built on manipulation, identity theft, and corporate infiltration. My daughter-in-law wasn't the soft, sweet wife she pretended to be. She was a weapon.
A tool.
A recruiter. A thief. And my son. My gentle-hearted, trusting son. He was her next target. I stood there in my backyard clutching the old photograph, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear the wind. The woman in the picture was unmistakable, my daughter-in-law. Different hair, different clothes, different name, but the same smile, the same face, the same quiet confidence she used on my son every day. But the man standing beside her, that was someone I had never seen before.
Tall.
Clean-shaven. Sharp eyes that didn't smile even though his mouth did. A stare that seemed to slice right through the camera lens. I pointed at him with trembling fingers. Who is this? Igioma exhaled shakily, as if saying his name alone was dangerous. He's called Mr. K, she whispered. Nobody knows his real name. He recruits women like your daughter-in-law, trains them, and sends them into new cities every few years. They target specific men. Men who can give them access to sensitive databases, financial systems, industrial networks. My stomach twisted. And she's working for him? I asked. Not just working for him, Igioma replied. She belongs to him. The words hit me like ice water. Belongs. She doesn't make her own decisions, Igioma continued. She doesn't choose who to marry, who to target, what information to steal. Mr. K decides. He watches. He controls. He punishes. I swallowed hard. Punishes? Igioma nodded slowly. My brother tried to expose them. He's still missing. The backyard suddenly felt colder, as if the shadows had thickened around us. And now, she whispered, Mr. K has moved into this city. I think he's close. Too close. That meeting in the parking lot? She wasn't giving him money. Then what? She was giving him your son. My knees almost buckled. Igioma stepped closer, her voice trembling. Your daughter-in-law is not the villain in this story. She's the bait. The real enemy is the man pulling the strings, and he doesn't stop until he gets what he wants. The air felt heavier with every word. And what does he want? I asked. Her eyes locked with mine. Access, she whispered, to the secure systems your son now has clearance for. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't about marriage. This wasn't about love. This was about infiltration. And the true villain, the puppeteer behind all of it, had finally stepped out of the shadows. The moment Igioma walked away, leaving me with a photograph and a heart weighed down by dread, I understood something. This was no longer about suspicion. This was no longer about jealousy or marriage problems. This was about survival. I entered the house with shaking hands, feeling like every shadow was watching me. My son was in the living room, working on his laptop. His company's confidential files glowed on the screen. He had no idea that everything he worked for, everything he loved, was already slipping into the hands of someone who saw him as nothing more than a stepping stone.
A tool.
A password with legs. I stood silently behind him, watching the codes, the diagrams, the charts he was typing. If someone with the wrong intentions gained access to this level of information, they could bring down an entire company. an entire network. And my son, my innocent, trusting son, would be the one blamed for it. The weight of it hit me all at once. This wasn't just about a broken heart. This wasn't about betrayal. This was about legal destruction, financial devastation, criminal charges, identity theft,
Corporate espionage.
a man capable of disappearing people who get in his way. I felt my chest tighten. If Mr. K got what he wanted, my son could lose
His job.
his future, his freedom, his life. I walked into my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. I opened the folded list Igioma had given me. The list of men marked compromised, used, vanished. Most had job titles next to their names. Database analyst, network engineer, software developer, security clearance officer. All positions similar to my son's. All men who suddenly disappeared from their companies, their marriages, their communities, swallowed up by the same criminal ring that had now wrapped its fingers around my family. I closed my eyes and inhaled shakily. Then another terror struck me. One I hadn't considered before. Money. My son's accounts, his retirement fund, his credit, the home he built with sweat and long nights, could all be gone. Wiped clean. I rushed to his office drawer. The one he never locked because he trusted his wife completely. Bank statements. Credit card letters. Receipts. I flipped through them, and my heart sank. Withdrawals he didn't make. Transfers he never approved. New credit lines he didn't open. I pressed my hand to my chest. She was already stealing from him, bit by bit, quietly, smartly, without raising alarms, like a parasite slowly draining a host. And it didn't end there. In one envelope, I found a congratulations letter from the bank, thanking him for applying for a joint loan. A loan worth millions. But the signature on the application wasn't his. It was hers. My knees weakened. She was setting him up, financially, legally, professionally. She was positioning him like a pawn, so when the ring made their move, the only person the authorities would blame was my son. I squeezed the envelope in my hand, fury burning through me. This wasn't a marriage. This was a trap. A meticulously planned operation designed to strip my son of everything he had ever earned, while the real mastermind sat in the shadows, waiting to collect the final pieces. And the worst part? My son still believed he was married to an angel. But angels don't hide second phones. Angels don't steal identities. And angels don't hand over their husbands to monsters.
No.
Only well-trained predators do that. And now that I knew the stakes, now that I saw the wolf hiding in my house, there was only one thing I could do. Protect my son, no matter what it cost me. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. I lay awake in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hums of the house, the refrigerator, the ticking clock, and the soft footsteps of my daughter-in-law pacing the hallway at 2:17 a.m. For weeks, I had been watching, observing, suspecting.
But now?
Now I knew, and knowing changes everything. When the sun finally rose, I felt different. Calmer.
Sharpened.
As if something ancient inside me had awakened. I've lived long enough to understand one truth. A mother can be soft until her child is in danger. Then she becomes something else entirely. A protector. A strategist. A weapon. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, tying my headscarf with deliberate precision. My reflection stared back at me, older, wiser, but suddenly fierce in a way I hadn't seen since my husband passed. I'm done waiting, I whispered to myself. If she thinks she can destroy my son, she has no idea who she's dealing with. By noon, I had assembled a team. Not a big one. Not a fancy one. Just the right one. Esther. My lifelong friend and retired police clerk who knew how criminals operated and how evidence hid in paperwork. Cynthia, my brilliant niece who could trace digital footprints, decrypt suspicious activity, and follow mobile data trails like a bloodhound. Chukwu, My son's trusted coworker, a man I had known since he was a boy, who confirmed late-night shifts my son never worked and access logs he never used. Together, we formed a quiet alliance, not loud, not official, but determined. We met in my bedroom, door closed, curtains drawn. We fight smart, I told them. Not loud, not reckless. She's trained. She's dangerous. And she's not working alone. Esther cracked her knuckles. Then we'll be smarter. Cynthia opened her laptop. I'll start accessing her digital trail. Chakwu nodded with a grim expression. I'll monitor all activity on your son's work systems. If anything suspicious logs in, we'll know. And me? I had one mission. Stay close to the enemy. Watch her every move. Make her believe I suspected nothing, while uncovering everything. That day, I made a promise. I would dismantle every trap my daughter-in-law set, and expose the web she came from. Even if it meant going to war with a monster pulling her strings, the showdown didn't happen with guns or fists. No screaming matches in the street. No dramatic movie-style chases.
No.
It happened quietly.
Strategically.
Exactly the way a predator should be caught. By letting them believe they've already won. For days, I played the role of the harmless mother-in-law. I cooked her favorite meals. I asked about her day. I smiled warmly whenever she entered the room. And slowly, beautifully, she let her guard down. One evening, she even laughed in front of me. A free, careless laugh that told me she believed I had swallowed her lies whole. That was the night we set the trap. We staged everything. Chakwu alerted us the moment my son's company system detected unauthorized access attempts routed through an IP address located less than a mile from our home. Cynthia traced the digital fingerprints straight to her second phone. Esther collected every document, every bank slip, every suspicious transaction, tagging them neatly and adding timestamps. And me? I invited my daughter-in-law for tea. She came into my bedroom wearing a soft smile, the kind of smile a woman gives when she thinks she's in control. Sit, I said sweetly. I want to talk to you woman to woman. She sat. Do you love my son? I asked gently. She blinked, caught off guard by the softness of the question. Of course I love him. Good, I whispered, leaning forward. Then you won't mind explaining this. I reached under my pillow and placed the black phone, her secret phone, on the table between us. Her entire face shifted, not dramatically, not cartoonishly, just enough for me to see the mask slip. What is that? She stammered. You know exactly what it is. Her hands trembled. A tiny, involuntary twitch. I pressed on. And you won't mind explaining why there are bank transfers in my son's name to accounts we traced to your handler. Her eyes widened, then hardened. You've been spying on me, she hissed. I've been protecting my son, I replied. She stood up abruptly, panic rising. You don't know what you're doing. At that moment, Chakwu stepped into the room. Then Esther. Then Cynthia, holding the laptop with the open digital logs. My daughter-in-law froze. She realized she wasn't facing one person, but all of us. We know everything, Cynthia said coldly. The access attempts, the identity switch, the stolen funds, the meeting with Mr. K. All of it. Her breath grew sharp and uneven. What do you want? She whispered. Not you, I said. The truth. And the man who sent you. She backed toward the door, only for it to swing open. And standing there was Igioma, the trembling woman who'd warned me first. Only this time, she wasn't trembling. Her voice was steady, firm, and powered. It's over. I've given my full report to the task force. They're coming for him. My daughter-in-law's shoulders collapsed. For the first time, she didn't look powerful. She didn't look cunning. She looked afraid. Truly, deeply afraid. And then, in a moment I'll never forget, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt him, she whispered. But damage had already been done. And justice was already at the door. The police arrived quietly, no sirens, no flashing lights. Just two unmarked cars pulling into our driveway as if they were visiting old friends. Igiomas stepped outside to meet them, handing over a thick folder of evidence she'd been collecting long before I ever knew danger lived under my roof. My daughter-in-law didn't fight. She didn't scream or plead or try to escape. She simply lowered her head as the officers led her to the car, her wrists cuffed gently, almost respectfully, as though they knew she was more pawn than mastermind. My son stood by the doorway, shaking, not from anger, but from heartbreak. The kind of heartbreak that shatters a man quietly from the inside out. He whispered, "Mom, how did we not see it?" I placed my hand on his cheek. "Because love is blind," I told him softly. "But a mother's eyes are not." He broke down then. The weight of betrayal, fear, and humiliation pouring out all at once. I held him, just as I did when he was a boy frightened by thunder. Over the next few days, life moved strangely. Officers from a federal cyber task force came in and out, gathering files, asking questions, connecting dots we didn't even know existed. Igioma stayed in touch, updating us quietly. She confirmed what we feared. Mr. K had fled the city the moment his operative was compromised. A predator slipping back into the shadows. But my son wasn't charged. He wasn't blamed. He wasn't ruined. Thanks to the evidence, mine, Cynthia's, Esther's, and Igioma's, he was cleared completely. Still, the pain lingered. A wound doesn't close simply because the blade is removed. But healing began.
Slowly.
He found strength in therapy, in work, in quiet evenings with me drinking tea on the porch. And one afternoon, as he sifted through old emails trying to reclaim some normalcy, he sighed with relief. "I'm finally moving past it," he said. I almost believed him. Until that night. At 9:42 p.m., his phone buzzed again on the table. I glanced at the screen. A new name flashed across it. A name I recognized. A name I never expected to see again. Mr. K. My blood ran cold. The nightmare wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning.